Hello there, today I'm making a card for somebody who is turning 60 soon, and I've cut out most of the components and I'm really just putting it together. I thought I might as well video it. Why not? I've got paper tray ink numerals dies, which are very useful. They also come with a mat for each of the numerals, which is great. Gives you something to round them onto. When I looked up to see the colours for anniversary, a 60th anniversary, which I already knew was diamond for a stone, but it's really white, so I've gone with a fairly white look for this card. I'm just layering up these little sixes. I've cut them out of a piece of sort of embossed paper, and it has a slightly brocaded look, which is rather nice. I didn't want it to be absolutely dead white, but I wanted to give it a little bit more of texture or slight variation in colour to make it stand out a little without being too vibrant. I didn't want it to look too absolutely bridal either. I wanted it to look a little bit more age appropriate. Not that you can't be a bride at 60. I should watch what I say, shouldn't I? But you know what I mean. I didn't want it to be dead white. I thought of vellum and all sorts of other things. But decided that little slight texture, I'm not sure, you probably can't even see this. I don't suppose you can see the slight embossing. Anyway, it's not important, it's there. Now I've got the 0 already done, there's the 6, so that's done. I found in my stash this little flower which I love. You almost make them from paper mache. You get them so wet and mushy and scrunched up, and then open them out, and I think they're quite delicious little flowers. I've cut out some leaves, I've cut out the numerals, I've got the flower. The flower reminds me very much of a gardenia. We can't grow them here in Tasmania, but I was just amazed when I went to Sydney to live for a couple of years while I was working there to find gardenia hedges just everywhere. It just blew my mind. I was constantly picking gardenias surreptitiously from car park hedges. Couldn't believe it. And oops, I've dropped it in on the glue. Let me wipe that quickly before it loses its sparkle. What I've got here is a diamond. Diamonds being the celebratory stone. Well, celebratory for almost anything, isn't it? But for a 60th anniversary, diamonds is the stone to go for. And I have to admit, I don't really think that it is a totally honest and above board diamond, if you can believe me. I bought these at, is that focusing? AliExpress, a pair of them in earrings for, I don't know, $1.50 or something. So I'm assuming it's not real. I'll just leave that in there to set itself. I think the 60s are okay. Next is the Happy Birthday. Now I've cut out 3 here. I'm still debating whether I'll go with the silver or whether I'll leave it off, but I think it's such a plain card base that I might put the silver on. I've cut the Happy Birthday using I think it's a Simon Says stamp Happy Birthday die. Simon Says stamp? Yeah. And following Therese from Lost in Paper, when she does this, she leaves the, I usually pull it out and then try and wangle it behind the paper cutout, but she always leaves it in the piece of fun foam that she's cut it from and then glues over it. So that's what I'm trying to do. She says it keeps it stable, and I can see that it looks as if that's what it's going to do. And this is the first time I've really remembered not to pull it out. And I cut these out a little while ago, so the fun foam had a good chance to get over being stretched and to settle itself back down. I think I might have missed the end of the Y there. I'll just put a little more dab of glue there. Just to be sure of it. Set that across it while I work on the birthday. Getting this everywhere. Terribly fiddly little die cuts these, and I'm finding as the die wears, they tend to stick down in the words tend to stick down in the die, so they're a little bit harder to get out, and they often partially twist out of shape a little. So it takes a little longer to get them out of the dies. I guess it's such a frail little die that they're simply just becoming a little less effective, but I have used them so many times I shouldn't complain. Oops. It's certainly nice and easy to get them in position, a lot easier than I think that might be not. Yes, it's not very well adhered there either. Hope that doesn't adhere it to the fun foam. We will be in trouble. Okay, I'm still in two minds. I really can't decide whether I'll go with the silver. I just think it might add a little bit more sparkle, so let's do it. It's a very plain card. I'm afraid I like very plain cards myself. They're my preference always. The sort of most minimal the better. Having said that, I have the greatest trouble in the world making one layer cards. I really have to work hard at a one layer card. I'm getting better. Practice makes perfect, as we know. some little silver threads hanging on that. Hopefully they'll come off without too much fuss. I hope I'm not getting glue on the top of that. Probably am, taking away from the lovely shine. Oops. I've tried all sorts of adhesives when layering up these tiny die cuts, and find the matte medium really seems to me to be the best one to use. So might have to give that a bit of an erase later. Let that dry for a minute. I've cut some of the little leaf sprays from, what is it, that little bird die, Punch, the Stamping Up one, and by just rubbing the ball, that nice biggish ball, over the stems and leaves, it creates quite a nice bit of texture. I'm not going to colour those at all, I'm just going to leave them as they are. Just trim the stems a little. These styluses are McGill, and they come in a little set. They're very useful for all sorts of things. Now, the base of the card, I've got that over here, is a 6-inch square card, so that's ready to go. I've cut a panel that's 5 3/4 inches square, and I've attached fun foam to the base of that. A couple of tips: when you're cutting fun foam, it's best to cut it and leave it to sit to retract for a while, as I said before with the little word die cuts, but also for these sorts of things, because often I try and cut it as close as I can so there's no bulgy bits, and I find when I go to put it on the card that it is, it's sort of expanded a little and is too close to the size, and have to trim it again. Now this little trick with the blue stick, or the glue stick, sorry, it is a blue glue stick, over the double-sided tape is a trick I learned while watching one of Genevieve's Genevieve Designs on YouTube. One of her subscribers told her about it, and it's brilliant. It just gives you a moment of time, which I almost invariably need, I have to say, when you're putting down something that you really want to centre. Not too bad. Hopefully that'll be okay. It just gives you a moment of time. You can whip it back up if it's not quite exactly right. Now this is the main panel, and again that is on foam. And another trick with foam, when you're putting on double-sided tape, actually I might not use double-sided tape with this one, the Helmer 450 glue is pretty good for that, but when you're putting on tape, sometimes I put it on and sort of stretch it on with your fingers. You stretch it into place because you're holding it nice and taut. And what I found that does, it actually puts extra tension on the foam and can actually sort of start to curve it, which is a real pain when you want something to lay nice and flat. So what I do is I just lay it carefully on and cut it off so that I'm not pulling on the tape once it's on the foam. I think that's all my phone tips for today. This Hellmouth is pretty good too. It doesn't really distort. Other glues I've tried seem to contract as they dry and also cause that sort of warping of the piece of foam. This one goes. There we go. Let's let that dry. Make sure our diamond is well adhered. These little stems I'll just pop in under the flower once I've positioned that. I need to find where I'm putting the 60. These will pop out okay. There's a happy. I need to poke out his little inserts because they're stuck. Again, using the fun foam just really gives you that added dimension, which is nice on a something like that. Probably go up a little bit into the centre. That can go directly underneath it. That can go there. Now where will it fit? I think as low down as I can. I think I might put that on now. I've got some London Fog Memento ink to do that, so I'm not introducing. Just stamp that one more time to make sure it's as that looks okay. much. I probably need that some more. Get rid of all these bits so I can think what I'm doing. Don't stand mess about. There we go. Now, to get it together, I think I'll just trim these little stems off. We don't need them to be as long as they are. I can glue these on now. Don't know what I did before. Came out with these little micro nozzles. It's just amazing how much glue that I save. Now I've got these, it's just saves me from wasting such a lot. I'm not getting my head in the camera way. This one. And so much more precise for placement. It's just lovely. I love these little nozzles. I've got a couple of them now. I'm still looking for one for a couple of my larger glue bottles. When I first started making this morning, I actually covered the 6 and the 0 with some of this diamond dust, because I thought, well, diamonds, let's cover them. But whether it was the adhesive or whatever, it didn't work. They didn't stick too well, and so I got out some other glitter, clear white glitter I thought, but when I put it on it looked incredibly pink and I didn't like it. So I think the diamond solitaire in the flower, in the gardenia, is going to have pride of place. I'll use that for the happy birthday, but I think I'll use the Helma for the leaves and the flower. And here it comes. It has a great propensity for exploding out of the nozzle. I added the extra dimension on the layers of the card because I thought I'm going to have to add it to a box anyway. It's going to have a dimensional box to hold this card with the flower. So I might as well make the most of it. So that's what I did. Okay, now what's the best way? Oh, there's another little. You always seem to miss one, don't you? That's not sticking very well either. That little one. There we go. Actually, before I do that, what have I got that I can use? A bit of a softish bristle brush, maybe. Get rid of those little tiny strands of, oh dear, now I've made it all gluey. I am making a mess. on there. Now for the birthday. Try and brush it off before I didn't realise for a long time that, especially if you run your die cuts through the Big Shot, it's really a bit soft, but I don't want to use anything too hard. Might be a bit more bristly. If you run them through the Big Shot twice, they very, very often create these tiny little thread-like strands that cling to the edges. And I think especially with some of these silvered and sort of foiled papers, they seem to have a plasticky sort of layer that I'm just going to have to go with that one. I might be able to get some tweezers and remove a bit of it. Once it's dried and set. I hope this lady has a happy birthday. 60th anniversaries are very important. I was actually, on my 60th birthday, I'd moved back home and thought I was going to have a lovely day at home with the family, and got an urgent job call at 6 o'clock that morning. I was en route to Adelaide from Hobart. Up and away before anyone could get going with any sort of birthday celebrations, let alone myself. And even when I got home, I'd had such a exhausting week, and it took me a while to get over it. It was absolutely fraught and frazzled. But in its way, it was memorable. There we go. I think it's I think that's all the bits on, and as you can see, it's uber plain. I'll put a still photo at the end of the video. But there it is. That's my white diamond 60th birthday celebration card. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon. Bye now.